Okay, we're in week 7 now, and things are moving along. I was looking over the, everybody should have, last night I sent out the video evaluations of your first essay. Okay, so if you did not receive one, send me a note right away, and I'll work on getting you one as soon as I can. They ran anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, depending on what I thought would be useful for you guys. So I hope those help and explain kind of what you're looking for. In the assignments and everything. So, and what I tried to do with them, and I want to make this very clear, I tried to make sure everybody understands the writing as a process, but I also try to make sure everybody develops their own basic approach. Everybody will do it differently, and you're going to be navigating this kind of with the class and on your own together, working out what works for you, but hopefully I'll be giving you some tips on what I think might help you out, might bump you up a little bit. The other thing I did want to tell folks is most folks end up, not all, it really depends on each individual and how much they put into it, end up a grade higher than what they got on the first essay. That's been my experience. In other words, you learn how to get better at things, and you end up, if you start off with a C, you end up with a B in the class very often. So just be aware of that. So I am a tough grader, I do realize that, but I always want to make sure that when you finish this class and you go on to a university, that you know what to expect and what you're going to run into. And so I know it is somewhat demanding, but I also want people to have very realistic expectations when they go off from English 101. So that's the purpose of all the videos and everything. They take me a lot of time, so please understand I've fallen a little behind on things, and I'll try to start getting caught up this week. But I try to give everybody as much useful advice as I can within that short period of time that's really tailored to your needs. I will do that again with the Showa video, with the Showa essays. After that, I won't be able to do them again. They're pretty darn time consuming. It does take the full week to get those all together for each individual student. So I will do it again with Showa, but I won't be doing it with the civil rights essay. So by the time of Showa, you should have a good handle on how you're writing and what you need to do, and kind of where to get to. Now, we are in the Showa essay right now, okay? And so I want to go over a few things and just make sure everybody's caught up and on the right page. We have the Showa essay due next week, the end of next week, okay, or Thursday of next week. Let me go through a few things. Now, first thing on the calendar, let's take a look at that, because I added something on there. And I want everybody to see this, is that I added on a date to retake quiz number 1 if you want to in the grammar, okay? And it's up to you. I'm going to go ahead and open up quiz 1 one more time on the 11th, and the new grade replaces the old, okay? So if you want to retake it one more time, give it another go, you can do it within that time period. Even if you got a good grade and you might want to see if you can bump it up, that's fine, and I'll take whichever one's your highest. My thing is I really want people to learn the grammar and understand it and be able to use it. The end game for this grammar book is that you learn some rhetorical strategies, some ways to use grammatical structures to develop your ideas and be more detailed. That's the main goal of where we're going with the grammar in this. That's what we want to get to. The 3 big things that you're going to see here is how to get through, how to be able to generate prepositional phrases, parallel structures, and dependent clauses. Those 3 structures, in all my years of teaching now, I've learned those are the 3 structures that really good writers use over and over again. And students who struggle to get detail, they usually either don't have those, or they use them so rarely that they could use them in order to develop their ideas and get their analysis down. So that's where we're going with this. So you get the overview of grammar from chapter 1. You're getting the nuts and bolts of grammar. That's the parts of speech in chapter 2. And I want to be clear, chapter 2 I know is very tedious, but go through it. It overlaps much of what you've learned already about grammar. I will be posting a couple of videos on chapter 2 probably by the beginning of next week, probably by the 15th, okay? And walk you through some of the issues. But just complete chapter 2 and get through it, and then we'll have the quiz on that one on the 26th of October. I am going to do one other thing. I hope this is good news. I'm going to eliminate Chapter 5 from the required chapters in the grammar textbook. We're simply running out of time, so I'm going to take it and eliminate it as a requirement and just take it away from the points possible and not require you guys to finish it. So I'm going to do that. Chapter 5 is mostly about commas, which honestly are the least important. So if you get through Chapter 4, you should have gotten the main strategies for writing, and that's really what folks need. So through Chapter 4, that's what we're going to go through. Okay. So again, retake. If you want to redo it, you can retake it on Thursday. You don't have to. It's perfectly fine. And now on the other things on here, we're trying to finish up the summaries of, we need to get through the summaries of the Ghetto by the end of the week. A number of folks are still struggling to get through the summaries of Treblinka, and I really make darn sure you can get back in there and get them done. Okay, it's still open. Get it done. It's very important that you complete it. I can be a little bit flexible on due dates, but boy, oh boy, get them done. Get Treblinka done, and we're going to get the Warsaw Ghetto done. Okay, so make sure you get Treblinka done with Sukhomel and Bomba as soon as you can if you are one of the students who didn't finish it yet. Okay. Now let me take you back to the discussion and show you what we're going to do with the Ghetto. I made a slight adjustment and got up there. I put the time periods in the Showa videos so that you can go to the Ghetto. You don't have to watch all of, and you've got part 1 and part 2. Okay, let me get rid of myself here. You've got part 1 and part 2. If you go, and you'll see this I just added this morning, I would like you to go through 2 different sections, 2 different parts. The Franz Grossler starts on 356. Now, I need to tell you his testimony is interspersed. Let's go to 356. This, by the way, I should mention him. He gives excellent testimony. He's a little bit, for a lot of Americans, he seems really odd. This is Jan. Let me get myself back in here. Sometimes helps. This is Jan Karski. He was a messenger between the Polish governments and the Allied agencies and the Jews. He was a messenger traveling back and forth. And he goes into his interaction with the Jewish resistance. And it's fascinating. It is, and I'll be very clear, I want people to know this, it is quite tedious to listen to him go through things. You know, he's got a heavy accent. I know it strikes American ears as odd, as, you know, a little bit unusual, but this is somebody who actually went back and forth between the Jewish resistance and the Allied powers. And he talks about not realizing the scope of what was going on and talking to the folks in the resistance who did realize what was going on. And he really describes the nature of coming to terms on a strategic level with genocide. And how difficult it was to first comprehend what was going on, even though he knew neighborhoods were getting wiped out. He knew it. He doesn't deny it at all. But coming to terms with the scope of it, he goes through it. And you're going to see him when he goes through this, his difficulty to struggle with what went on. Now, he's not Jewish. He's actually Polish and Catholic. But he witnessed what was going on, and he's very clear about his experience there. So he's a fascinating, he talks about, you're going to see much of the difficulty that Bomba and some of the other survivors had, even though, again, he's not Jewish. Some of the difficulties he has with talking about it. And you can see it right here. I don't have the sound on, but you can see him struggling with it. And I want you to be aware of, pay attention to these moments when people struggle and when there are these silences. And what are they able to talk about and what are they not able to talk about? He doesn't really talk about particular acts of violence and genocide, but he talks about strategy and talking to the strategists who were working for the Jews at the time. So he's fascinating. I'm not going to require him, but if you want to know more about it and what was going on with the nature of it, he's absolutely fascinating. But again, I know he strikes folks as being a little unusual. I think unusual can be a good thing, though. The place I really want you to go to is Grossler, starting on 356, and then go to, definitely go to the Itzhak Zuckerman and Sima Rotem on 427. So 356 and 427. Now, if you go to 356, and you can trace it this way, most of you guys are competent at doing this. This is one of the essentially he was a guard, a manager of one of the ghettos. He did it for the Germans. And it's Dr. Grassler. And he talks about his position, and he is being filmed, and he knows it. And he goes through kind of how he didn't understand what was going on. But notice always how he is clear about the appalling conditions, but he always kind of denies his responsibility in it. But he had an enormous amount of responsibility for making it possible. And so watch the way he avoids his role in it. It's very important to know this and the way they do it. Okay, but very important too. And you can skip in this section. I don't mind if you skip Raoul Hilberg. He will come up. Raoul Hilberg is one of the historians who talks in this. You can skip his testimony. He's perfectly good as a historian. He's a very well-respected historian. But the whole goal of this unit is not to work with historians, but to work with primary sources. So you don't need to watch Hilberg. Okay, you can skip over him. And again, he's working with other primary sources, so you can skip over him. I would like you to watch Grassler. Okay. And the overall impression you should start to form is of a very complicated situation. Did he really want to be there? Well, probably not, no. But did he have a part to play in this? Is he partly responsible? Without a doubt. And it gets to the nature of guilt and responsibility, but it also gets to the nature of genocide. What are you willing to allow to transpire? And so many of the villagers and so many of the people involved were willing to allow genocide to transpire, to be either a smaller part or a greater part of it. And what Landsman does very well is he talks to a lot of the people who sat and watched, or who served as guards, or who were really making decisions. Grassler and Sukhomel were making decisions, were taking part, an active part in it. Okay. So it's very important to watch the way they talk about things and what they remember and what they do. Now, the last section I want you to go to deals with, this is down here, the testimony of Itzhak Zuckerman and Simcha Rotem. These two are fascinating because these were part of the Jewish organization, the combat organization in the Warsaw Ghetto. And they talk about many of the things that they were trying to do. This is Simcha Rotem right here, looking at one of the museums, one of the contemporary museums. Itzhak Zuckerman, when you get him, you'll see he's... Rotem goes quiet for a long time as he tries to recall what went on. Zuckerman is a wreck, an absolute wreck. You can see alcoholism has taken its toll on him. Rotem, not so much. An emotional wreck, and he's obviously has a lot of pain he's put back. But Rotem's testimony is very compelling and very important because this was somebody at the center of the resistance talking about the problems they were running into. And it's important to understand this. There was no Jewish state at this time at all, and so they relied upon the Allied forces to try to stop what was going on. Other states were being occupied and suffering horrendous brutalities during this war. There's no denying that. The Jews were a particular situation because they were going to be wiped out entirely. What is inappropriate to do with World War II and with the Holocaust is to act like one person's suffering is more or lesser than another's. That means you don't really get the nature of what went down. Of course, everybody's suffering is incredibly important to understand. But it's important to understand also the distinction that was being made by the Germans, because they weren't fighting a war against the Jews. The Jews were not a threat to them. They were, however, trying to wipe them out. The Jews were being wiped out. And in fact, the Holocaust was extremely successful in many regards. In other parts of the movie we're not going to go through. And you may go, I encourage you to go through it. It's a very long movie. They go through many of the Polish neighborhoods where the Jews are gone. They are gone. They are not coming back. These are now neighborhoods that are deserted of any Jews, and they were Jewish neighborhoods. And they're all gone. So it's very important to understand the distinction of what goes on with genocide, that it is an erasure of an entire culture, of an entire people. It doesn't mean that Jewish suffering was different than what the Poles went through, the Belgians, and other groups. That's misunderstanding the nature of the Holocaust and why we treat it differently. Okay? So I want to be very clear about that. We're not trying to play anybody's suffering off of somebody else's. Of course, that would be a silly thing to do. Okay? It's very important as you're looking through these testimonies to understand what it was lived like on the ground and what a genocide, how it's undertaken. How are different people actually a part of this whole process? This scale of genocide was just shocking. Others have taken place, the Armenian genocide and others, what happened in Rwanda, what happened in Serbia, and other places. And if you go back through history, what's happened with the Native Americans, what happened in the Congo under the Belgians, all of these events in history are extremely important. What you do not want to do, and what is a futile exercise, is to start playing off one group suffering of another. That's silly. Okay, so we don't want to fall into that trap. Another trap not to fall into is the trap that's come up recently, and it's coming up more often. It's been going on since the Holocaust. The denial of the Holocaust, or to treat it as if it's a debatable issue. In history, there are things that happened. Many issues can be debated from different perspectives, but the Holocaust took place. It happened. To debate whether or not it happened, the people who are doing this today are not doing it because they're engaging in history. They're doing it because they're engaging in anti-Semitism. And they want to act like it didn't happen at all. It undeniably happened. The way it came about, we can get into the testimonies and give insights into how Bomba's working, how Sukhumul's working, and others. But one approach to history and to the Holocaust that's absolutely reprehensible is to act like it didn't happen, or to argue that it didn't happen. So this is something that's going on today, and it's been going on for many decades. And again, it's not just odd, it's not just ignorant, it's anti-Semitic, and it's brutal. So obviously, don't go in that direction. I don't tolerate that kind of silliness. But I do want you to go through the testimony and understand it in a detailed way. We are not, with this essay, what we're not doing, okay, is arguing one group's suffering against another. Again, that's absolutely ridiculous. That's just a futile exercise, okay? But we're also not trying to get into whether or not it did happen or it didn't. It did. Okay, that's just anti-Semitic to even argue that. What you do want to do is go through and first and foremost select whether or not you want to write on Chelmno, whether you want to write on Treblinka, or whether or not you want to write on the ghetto and the uprising in the ghetto. You can pick one of those three. Okay, you can choose other parts of the movie to write about. I would prefer folks stayed away from Auschwitz because it's better known. I want you to go into a part of the Holocaust that you're not fully familiar with. If you know something about it, then go into Chelmno and you might not know about it, or you might not know about the resistance that came about. Many people do know about Treblinka. Almost everybody knows about Auschwitz. So I want you to go into something that you may not be fully familiar with, and that way you can encounter the testimony the first time and get to how did this start off in Chelmno. Look into what Simon Srebnick says and what the Polish villagers say. Why were they so accepting of a mass murder right there in their own small town? And they war. Why was it just, for the small town? What attitudes actually led to that? Watch what's going on with Srebnick when he's around the villagers, how happy they are to see them, but also the way they talk about things. Watch the way Srebnick talks about his participation in what was going on. It's very important. You can get details about it. Watch Bomba. If you're going to write about Treblinka, why does Bomba have a very easy time talking in generalities, but he comes to a screeching halt when he actually has to remember a particular woman sitting down in front of him with children, and he cannot talk and he gets angry? Why does that happen? Why does Sukhumul sing with such enthusiasm? Go through those things, okay? And then get through Simon Rotem and others and how they felt isolated and alone. What we don't want to fall into is contemporary politics and other things. I don't want to go there. I want you to stick with the testimonies from this time when they're remembering it. That's what we're doing. I will be posting. You should finish the ghetto testimony, and then I'll be posting videos on how to go through the draft process. I want you to pick which of the 3 segments you want to write on: Chelmno, Treblinka, or the ghetto. Get them all posted. Get your summaries posted of the testimonies. Okay. This last one, by the way, I'm perfectly fine if you just write on Zuckerman and Rotem. That's fine. If you just want to watch the last 25 minutes or so of it and just do Zuckerman and Rotem, that's fine. But pick which one of the 3 you want to do. Again, Chelmno, Treblinka, or the ghetto. And then you're going to go through and do a close reading within one of those. Okay. You're going to either be writing on Srebrenic and the Polish villagers, or you're going to be writing on Sukhomel and Bomba, or you're going to be writing on Zuckerman and Rotem. Really Rotem, because Zuckerman, honestly, is a wreck. He clearly is a wreck. But Rotem has a lot to say about things. So find that, and then you're going to be going after and giving a particular insight within those parameters. Okay? So I hope that's clear. So just to put it all together, make sure you get the testimonies, the summaries posted. Okay? Make sure you get that and get caught up on that if you're behind. Most of you guys are doing a very good job. I'm very happy with how these classes are doing. So get those. If you want to retake Quiz 1, go ahead and do that on Thursday. I'll open it up and let you retake it. I really just want folks to get through that. Okay? I'll have videos posted for Quiz 2 coming up. That'll be next week. And also make sure you've gotten your video on your first essay. If you did not get it, get me a note and I'll get one off to you. Okay? All right. Take care, folks. Keep up the good work. And I'll be going through all your discussions and everything over the next few days, and we'll get going on the final essay. Okay? Excuse me, on the Shoah essay very soon. Take care.